Namaskar. In today's episode, we are going to see another Stoic quote. This is from Epictetus, one of the most popular Stoics. The quote is "Seek true freedom." Let us understand what he meant by this. But before we do that, if you have not already done so, please make sure to subscribe. And with that, let's get started. So Epictetus was one of the most famous Stoics, but he was actually a Stoic philosopher who lived in Greece around 300 BCE. He was born a slave and eventually became free, and then became a teacher himself. So in his own life, he faced many challenges and adversities, and based on his experiences and learnings, he developed his own philosophies and teachings. His main focus was on living a life according to nature, accepting what we cannot control, focusing on what we can control, and not letting external factors or circumstances dictate our emotions or well-being. One of his famous teachings was about seeking true freedom. You know, when we think about freedom, we often associate it with independence, liberty, and autonomy. We think of ourselves as free if we are able to do whatever we want without any restrictions or constraints. However, Epictetus suggests that this kind of freedom is an illusion because true freedom is not just the absence of external constraints. It is also about the state of mind and heart. It is about being free from fear, worry, and anxiety, from the need for approval or validation from others. True freedom is being untethered to outcomes, not letting the outcomes dictate how we feel, but rather being in control of our own thoughts and actions. For example, we might think that we are free to choose our friends, but what if we are subconsciously influenced by the expectations of our family or society? Or we might think that we are free to choose our careers, but what if we are driven by the desire for money or fame rather than our genuine interests and passions? In such cases, our choices are not truly our own. They are the result of external pressures and conditioning. Epictetus encourages us to examine our motivations and desires and to ask ourselves whether they are truly our own or whether they have been imposed on us by external factors. By doing so, we can start to free ourselves from the shackles of external expectations and live a life that is more authentic and fulfilling. However, the path to true freedom is not always easy. It requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to go against the grain. It means being willing to make sacrifices and endure hardships in order to stay true to oneself. But the rewards of this journey are immeasurable. True freedom is not just a theoretical ideal. It is a practical possibility for each one of us. It is something that we can strive for and achieve through conscious effort and self-reflection. By the way, before we move further, I would like to tell you about an initiative. Now let's try to understand the deeper meaning of this quote. The word seek implies a sense of purposefulness and intentionality. It suggests that we should not merely go through life passively, but that we should actively and consciously look for opportunities to be free. This requires a certain level of self-awareness and introspection. We must first become aware of the different ways in which we are constrained in order to be able to seek out true freedom. These constraints may be physical, emotional, intellectual, or even spiritual. For example, we may be physically constrained by our environment or circumstances, but we may also be emotionally constrained by our own fears and worries, or intellectually constrained by our own ignorance or lack of understanding. Once we have become aware of these constraints, we can start to question their legitimacy and to explore alternative ways of thinking and behaving. The word freedom itself is worth unpacking. What does it really mean to be free? Does it mean being able to do whatever we want whenever we want? Or does it mean something more? Epictetus believed that true freedom was not just the absence of external constraints, but also the presence of internal peace and autonomy. This means that even if we are physically free to do what we want, we may not be truly free if our actions are motivated by fear, anger, or other negative emotions. True freedom, according to Epictetus, is being able to choose our actions based on our own values and principles, regardless of external pressures or circumstances. Now let's see why Epictetus asked us to seek true freedom. The Stoics believed that living according to nature was the key to happiness and fulfillment. They believed that everything in the universe had a natural order, and that our duty was to live in harmony with that order. One of the ways to do this was to accept what we cannot control and focus on what we can control. By focusing on what we can control, we free ourselves from the anxiety and worry that comes from trying to control external factors. Similarly, by accepting what we cannot control, we free ourselves from the frustration and anger that comes from resisting reality. When we are able to let go of our attachment to external things, we become more free to pursue our own values and goals. We become more resilient in the face of adversity and better able to cope with the challenges of life. Another reason why Epicurus asked us to seek true freedom was because he believed that it was the path to wisdom and self-knowledge. By examining our motivations and desires, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. We become more aware of our strengths and weaknesses, our biases and prejudices, and the things that really matter to us. This self-awareness allows us to make better decisions and to live a life that is more authentic and fulfilling. Moreover, seeking true freedom is a way of honoring our humanity. As human beings, we have the capacity for reason and self-reflection. We are not simply creatures of instinct or habit. By using our reason to examine our own lives and the world around us, we can make choices that reflect our values and our understanding of the world. We can create our own meaning and purpose in life rather than simply following the herd. There are many obstacles that can hinder our ability to seek true freedom. Fear is one of the most common obstacles to freedom. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of success. Fear keeps us stuck in our comfort zones and prevents us from taking risks and pursuing our dreams. However, by facing our fears and learning to manage them, we can free ourselves from their grip and pursue the life that we want. Another obstacle to freedom is the pressure to conform to external expectations. We may feel like we have to do what others expect of us in order to be accepted or valued by them. However, by questioning these expectations and choosing to follow our own path, we can free ourselves from the burden of meeting others' standards. Finally, one of the greatest obstacles to freedom is our own ignorance and lack of self-awareness. If we don't understand ourselves or the world around us, we are more likely to make decisions that are not in our best interest. We may not realize that we are being manipulated or taken advantage of, or we may not understand the consequences of our actions. By investing in our own education and self-development, we can free ourselves from ignorance and empower ourselves to make better decisions. In conclusion, Epicurus' call to seek true freedom is a powerful reminder that freedom is not just a political or social ideal, but a personal and philosophical one as well. It requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to go against the grain. But the rewards of this journey are immeasurable. By seeking true freedom, we can live a life that is more authentic, fulfilling, and wise. We can also contribute to the creation of a more just and equitable world for all. Namaskar. For Epictetus, true freedom is inner freedom, the ability to govern yourself, to stay calm under pressure, and to choose your response to any situation. Epictetus was born into slavery, yet became one of the greatest teachers of liberty. Why? Because even when he had no control over his body or possessions, he had control over his mind, and that, he said, was all that truly mattered. What does it mean to be free? Is it the ability to travel wherever you want? To speak without fear? To have money, comfort, or control? Epictetus says no. None of those things are real freedom, because anything that can be taken away was never truly yours. Seek true freedom, he says, the kind that no chains can touch, the kind that exists not in the world, but in the soul.